On our 7th anniversary, my husband took Margaret's daughter by the hand and told me she was pregnant. The child was his. His face wore guilt, but only a thin veneer. Let's get a divorce. Brielle is pregnant. She just graduated, her life is just beginning. I won't let people whisper behind her back. I have to give her a name. I slapped the girl, shouting, "Why? There are countless men in the world." The girl flushed scarlet, yet her voice never wavered. "Sis, your family sponsored me for years and I'm grateful, but love is selfish. I can't give up the man I love just to repay you. Besides, you and Julian have been married all this time without a child. A fortune this size can't be left without an heir." I laughed coldly. Since she enjoys scavenging garbage, of course I'll let her keep it. Only this empire, her unborn brat is still unqualified to inherit it. Julian asked for the divorce while I was carrying the last dish out of the kitchen. Today was our 7th anniversary. I'd planned a sweet night for two and had even opened a bottle of vintage I'd kept for years. Never imagined Brielle would show up at dinner lugging an anniversary cake, claiming she'd come to congratulate us. I was startled, but still welcomed her warmly. I'd just set the final plate on the table when Julian, seated across from me, spoke in a low, grave voice. "Stop fussing, sit down. We need to talk." His expression was deadly serious. Brielle sat pressed to Julian's side, lips pink and faintly swollen, cheeks flushed, fingers restlessly turning her porcelain spoon. The atmosphere felt wrong, as if something had already happened between them while I was busy cooking. I pulled a paper towel from the kitchen rack, wiped my hands, untied my chef's apron, and joked, so solemn, like the ethics committee come to lecture me. A flicker of discomfort crossed Julian's face, but his tone stayed calm as ever. "Here's the thing." He cleared his throat, as though the words stuck. After a long pause he finally said, "Stella, let's divorce." I froze, then instinctively answered, "What are you saying?" "We have a guest, aren't you afraid she'll laugh?" Inside I scolded him for joking at the wrong moment. My reaction made Julian's face darken. Glancing at the nervous Brielle beside him, he cleared his throat again and said slowly, "I know this feels sudden. I've been in agony these past weeks, but I don't want to hide anymore." He drew a deep breath and confessed, "Brielle and I are together." Thunder cracked inside my skull. "You're with whom?" My voice shot up in disbelief. Brielle was the daughter of Margaret, who had worked for my family. Her mother had cooked and cleaned for us over a decade to pay medical bills for her bedridden husband. As a child, Brielle was always grimy, scrawny, and small. My parents took pity and paid her tuition from elementary school on. That lasted until my father's factory folded a few years back. After Margaret left our employ, Brielle was already a college freshman. Dad's plant had collapsed under debt, so I kept footing her tuition until graduation. In my mind she was a sweet kid 6 or 7 years my junior. Fragile looking, never someone who would cross paths with Julian. Staring at the two of them, I couldn't believe my eyes. Yet Julian looked as though he'd steeled himself. He simply laced his fingers through Brielle's and locked their hands tight. He told me, "Brielle learned last week that she's pregnant, the baby is mine." The sheer overload stunned me speechless. Julian still couldn't meet my gaze. He went on, "I know this is cruel, but I won't let my child be born a bastard. We've been married 7 years and you never conceived. My mother nags me daily, the pressure is unbearable. And Brielle is only 23. I'm 7 years older. She's sacrificing her bright future to be with a married man. I can't fail her, and I won't let gossip trail her. I beg you to let go, to give Brielle and me your blessing. I'll compensate you generously in the asset split." His words felt like a sword driven straight through my heart. All these years we had used birth control while we built the business. Later Dad's factory went under and we were swamped trying to save it. One crisis after another postponed our plans, and Julian knew every detail. Tonight I'd meant to tell him I was ready for a child. Instead, he'd handed me this surprise. Truth is, when rage and speechlessness collide, you laugh. "Really? So how much of the empire are you offering me?" The company was something we'd forged together. I smiled while my nails gouged crescents into my palms. Julian started to answer, but Brielle grabbed his sleeve, cutting him off. Terrified he might promise me too much. Through tears she cried, "Julian, why didn't you discuss it with me before blurting everything out to Sis? You've made me look like some shameless homewrecker." I laughed again, genuinely curious. How she defined herself. Did she believe the cliché that the unwanted wife is the real third wheel? Looks like every tuition dollar my family spent on her was flushed straight down the drain. Brielle rose from her chair, walked to my side, and dropped to her knees with a thud. "Sis, I'm sorry. No matter how I explain, you'll never forgive me. It's all my fault. Blame me. I couldn't help falling in love with Julian. He's innocent in this." She sobbed, tears streaming, eyes red as a frightened bunny's. I stared at the girl kneeling before me, tearful yet unable to hide the triumphant glint in her eyes, and slapped her hard across the face. I hit her because she had shattered every last shred of my faith. "Horse," I demanded, "why? There are billions of men on this planet." Brielle's face flamed, but her voice stayed defiant. "Sis, your family helped me for years, I'm grateful, but love is selfish. I can't surrender the man I love just to repay you. Besides, you and Julian have been married all this time without a child. A fortune this size can't be left without an heir." Her words shook me so violently I raised my hand to strike her again. Julian stepped between us, taking the slap meant for her. He shielded her with his body, putting distance between us. "Stella, every bit of this is my fault. Yell at me, hit me, leave Brielle alone. She's innocent." That spectacle twisted the knife deeper in my heart. I couldn't help sneering. "She's innocent? So you're saying you forced yourself on her? And she still didn't call the cops, actually wants to have your baby? You two truly deserve each other, scumbag and cheap slut." Brielle's face drained from crimson to chalk, her pale lips trembling. Julian's gaze iced over degree by degree. "Stella, watch your mouth. Show some decency. Brielle is pure and kind, she's nothing like you. To land purchase orders you got wasted with every man in the industry, let them paw your shoulders and waist, who knows what else you let them do. If we're talking cheap, no one beats you." Poison glinted in his eyes as the words he'd buried deep finally burst out. My brain gave a violent buzz, every drop of blood rushing to my skull. Fury burned my reason away. I snatched the water tumbler from the table and hurled it at Julian. The glass grazed his brow and hit the floor, the shatter cracked through the sudden silence like a gunshot. Each needle-sharp shard stabbed my heart, 1,000 arrows at once. "Julian, you bastard." His face blanched, he knew he'd crossed a line and opened his mouth to add something. I swept every dish off the table straight at them. "Get out! Both of you, get out!" I was shrieking. Blood beaded along Julian's brow. He stared at my breakdown, panic and rage mingling on his face. Brielle cowered behind him, dazed, both hands clutching her belly. Julian's eyes bulged. "Lunatic! You're absolutely insane. I have no clue what I ever saw in you. Brielle's right, you're nothing but a shrew." He grabbed Brielle's hand and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the bang felt like a hammer on my chest, leaving me gasping. Moments later the room sank into stillness. A suffocating, heavy silence, like a shapeless mouth swallowing me whole. All strength drained from me, my knees buckled and I collapsed into the chair. I wanted to cry, but my burning eyes produced no tears. My mind was chaos incarnate. The husband who once spoke only love had ripped off his mask, revealing something nauseating. The girl my family sponsored for over 10 years, who called me sis and swore she was forever grateful, behind my back she'd already slept with my husband. The memory of their clasped fingers made my stomach lurch, I almost retched. I needed to scream, to roar, yet my throat was corked, no sound escaped. My heart knotted so tight my teeth chattered. In the end I'd misjudged them both. We'd survived countless grueling nights together, dragging ourselves from nothing to this dazzling height. I could still picture us in that cramped office, still see how I took on every extra task to cut costs. Yet now he held another woman's hand and told me she was pregnant. My heart hurt. Every bone and vein hurt. When we married, the company was a newborn with zero market clout. We had to chase every lead myself. My family owned a small factory, but it made thermalware for export, totally unrelated to software. None of Dad's contacts could open doors in tech. Julian had pride etched in his bones. He'd never stoop to sales talk. So I became the one who hustled while he handled code and upkeep. Those years, entertaining clients was part of my job. Some sleazeballs who wanted to test me would force a whole bottle of vodka into my hands. But I could hold my liquor better than most men. In business, people usually respect each other, but there's always trash hiding behind I was drunk to grope a woman. Once in a while I'd vent to Julian. After listening, his eyes reddened with pity. He'd hug me and swear he'd never let me down. I never imagined the words I'd whispered in hurt would come flying back like boomerangs driven into my heart. The air reeked of food. Thick sauce crawled across the floor to my shoes. I didn't move. A shrill ringtone cut through my thoughts. Caller ID, Mrs. Hart. It rang, stopped, rang again, 3 cycles. I finally slid to answer. Her irritated voice crackled through. Stella, what's with you? I've been calling forever. What do you want? I had no energy left. Tomorrow's your dad's rehab session. Don't forget, get there early. The same lofty, commanding tone as always. Mr. Hart had a brain tumor removed 2 years ago. Nerve damage left his left side weak and his speech slurred. He needs rehab twice a week. Julian accompanied him exactly twice at the start. For the past 2 years I've managed everything. Mrs. Hart spends her days at mahjong tables and square dance parks. Every aide she hired quit because she's impossible. In the end I became the chauffeur and caretaker myself. 2 hospital rehab sessions a week, 3 acupuncture trips to the TCM clinic. He's improving. Short walks without a cane are possible now. I'm busy tomorrow, afternoon tea with friends. I refused outright. Mrs. Hart exploded. Tea is more important than your father-in-law's rehab? What kind of daughter-in-law are you? She never used to be like this. She even flattered me once. But after Dad's factory went bankrupt 3 years ago, she decided my family was useless and now I lived off her son. Her manner turned bossy. When I stayed silent she shouted louder. Whatever you've planned, cancel it. Take your dad to rehab first, handle your own nonsense later. Her tone was pure steel. I sucked in a breath and barked, stop saying your dad, my father's surname is Vance, not Hart. Legally, only Julian owes you support. At best I'm a relative, and only while married. If Julian and I divorce, you're nothing to me. Mrs. Hart choked on her own rage. Her voice shook. Stella, just wait. This isn't over. She hung up with a furious click. I powered the phone off. I sat amid the wreckage all night. Ironic, what was meant as a celebration of 7 years of marriage became the backdrop to its collapse. At dawn I called building services for a cleanup crew, washed my face, changed into a dress, and was about to leave for my parents when Julian walked in. He stormed in, shouting at me, Stella, how can you be so ill-bred? My mother is your elder, how dare you curse her with such filthy words? I ran the last few minutes through my head and came up blank. I couldn't recall insulting his mother at all. I didn't have the bandwidth to watch his tantrum. I walked straight to the foyer, reaching for my purse and car keys. He stretched out an arm to block me. Come with me right now and apologize to my mother. I shoved his hand away. Get lost. Then I pulled my heels from the shoe cabinet. Julian wouldn't let it go. He clamped his fingers around my arm. Stella! Divorce is between the 2 of us. Don't drag my parents into it, they've always treated you like a daughter. Come to their house with me and apologize, sincerely. Worked like a mule, and they call that like a daughter. So this is how they treat their own girls. Rage threatened to erupt. I seized one stiletto and aimed the spiked heel at his forehead. I'll count to 3. Let go or I swear I'll ram this into your skull. 1, 2, before the 3 left my mouth, Julian flung my arm away and dodged. He stared at me, still shaky. You're insane, completely insane. I'm divorcing you, you lunatic shrew. I wiped every emotion from my face and spoke one word at a time. Fine. I keep 70% of the assets. No way. Julian's answer rang out like a gavel. On what grounds? Out of guilt, I'll give you half. Take it or leave it. If you refuse, we battle it out in court. I stared at the man I now loathed. So splitting half the fortune with me is supposed to be his mercy. Then let's fight to the finish. I grabbed my bag and keys, slammed the door, and left. I drove to my parents' house. When I arrived, no one was home. Lately there'd been too much chaos. I hadn't visited in over 2 weeks. I called Dad and learned Mom was in St. Anne's Hospital, pneumonia brought on by the flu. They hadn't told me, afraid I'd worry. I raced to the hospital, frantic. In the parking lot I ran into Mr. Hart and Mrs. Hart, here for his rehab session. Mr. Hart sat crooked in his wheelchair. When he saw me, his eyes flashed resentment, as though he longed to curse me out. I was speechless. For 2+ years I'd shuttled this old man to Western medicine and acupuncture appointments 5 days a week while his wife and son ignored him. One missed trip and now I'm the villain? Apple doesn't fall far, every one of them is an ungrateful wolf. Mrs. Hart folded her arms and sneered. Scared now, are we? Rushing over to apologize? Kneel and beg, say you were wrong, and maybe Richard and I will forgive you. Otherwise, don't dream of setting foot in the Hart estate again. As if I crave walking through their gate. I gave her a flat stare and an eye roll. If your brain's sick, get it checked while you're here. Stop making a spectacle. I turned and strode toward the elevators to the wards. Mrs. Hart cracked, shrieking insults behind me. Minutes later Julian called. I blocked the number. No prizes for guessing his mother had run to tattle. I wasn't in the mood for his lectures. When he was my husband, I'd tolerated his parents for the sake of our marriage. Now he's just a cheating jerk, yet still expects me to kowtow. The elevator shot to the 12th floor, to Mom's ward. When I saw her, my nose stung. Mom, why didn't you tell me you were sick? It tears me up. She smiled and patted my hand. Telling you would only add worry. The care here is excellent, the pneumonia mild, for fluids for a few days and I'm fine. Tears spilled before I could stop them. How could it be mild? She'd lost visible weight and looked exhausted. Dad's face was gray with stubble. This was no simple pneumonia. I excused myself to buy something downstairs, went straight to the doctor's office, and learned the truth. A large irregular polyp had shown up on her lung scan. They'd removed it, biopsied it, early-stage lung cancer. The oncologist reassured me, treatment plan set, prognosis decent, keep her spirits and nutrition up. I squatted in the stairwell and cried until my throat burned. Her own daughter hadn't even known. During her surgery and admission only Dad kept vigil, while I played nursemaid to Julian's father. 7 years of marriage, what had I gained? I wiped my face and returned to the ward, acting unruffled. For the next few days I camped at the hospital. Mom kept urging me to go home, Dad could manage, and a married woman should mind her own household. I wasn't ready to reveal the looming divorce, so I simply said everything at home was handled. My only job now was getting her well. I never imagined Julian would bring Brielle straight to her room. Somehow they discovered the ward number. They walked in arm, I froze, and Mom looked stunned. Julian tried to jerk his hand free, but Brielle clamped on with both of hers. I growled under my breath and shoved them toward the door. Whatever it is, we talk at home, do not harass my mother. Brielle smirked. Divorce isn't a dirty secret, sis. I'm unmarried and unashamed, what are you afraid of? She deliberately raised her voice. I hissed, Julian, drag your woman out of here or I call security. Brielle pressed on. I came for one thing. Why should you get 70% of Julian's money? He built the company while you played housewife. Every meal, every stitch on your back came from his paycheck. What gives you the right? You think he's a pushover, but I'm here to stop you. She stood like the wronged wife confronting a gold-digging mistress. From the bed, Mom's voice cracked. Stella, you're divorcing Julian? I whispered, almost pleading, Julian, Brielle, my mom just had surgery, she can't take stress. Can we take this outside, please? Right then, Dad strode out of Ward B. He swept a cold glance over the three of us clawing at one another and understood everything in an instant. His razor-sharp eyes locked on Brielle. She flinched instinctively and snatched her hands off my clothes. Disappointment and frost filled Dad's gaze. After all, Brielle had lived on our charity for over a decade, and now she was the homewrecker. His voice was ice. Is this what your parents taught you? Bite the hand that feeds you and stamp on every shred of decency? Brielle shivered. Under Dad's stare, her face burned scarlet with shame. She muttered a weak defense. Uncle, you can't force feelings. Julian and I love each other. I haven't done anything wrong. As for the money you paid for me, I'll pay back every cent. Dad let out two soft, mocking laughs and ignored her. He turned to me. What are you going to do? The words were cold, but his eyes were full of heartache. I gave a bitter smile. His pregnant mistress just slapped me in the face. What else can I do but divorce him? Dad asked, how will you split the assets? I want 70% of the marital property, I said. Dad nodded. Fair. I put up the startup capital, giving him 30 as charity. Brielle shrieked, on what grounds? That's Julian's company, why should you take 70%? Dad silenced her with another knife-sharp look. She clamped her mouth shut, still mumbling under her breath. Dad raised his hand and slapped her hard. Lower than an animal, that slap is from your mother. Since she never taught you manners, I'll do it for her. Brielle stood frozen in terror. Julian stepped in at once, pulling her behind him. Dad, let's talk. Hitting people isn't right. His tone was questioning but no louder than a mosquito. He still feared and respected my father. Once, to marry me, he had bowed and scraped before Dad, eager to please. After the wedding, Dad had handed over $3 million in seed money. Back then Julian had practically knelt to kowtow in thanks. Dad's voice carried absolute authority. Julian, because you were my daughter's husband, I won't make this uglier than it has to be. Take 30% and get lost. Otherwise I'll spend every dime I have left to make sure you never know another peaceful day. You know I keep my word. If it means we both go down, so be it, I won't let you bully my daughter. My eyes stung, tears trembling on the edge. Julian's face went ashen, but in the end he clenched his jaw and nodded. He knew exactly what lay behind my father's threat. Dad added, bring the divorce settlement tomorrow at the latest. Try any tricks in that contract and you'll regret it. He paused. Oh, and the girl who just promised to repay the money I spent on her? I'll send her an itemized bill tomorrow. Lucky for me I kept the receipts. Brielle swayed, barely staying upright. Julian caught her before she collapsed. 1 month later, Julian and I picked up our divorce decree. We carried out the asset split exactly as the settlement stipulated. Julian wanted the company. He proposed trading every asset he still held for my equity stake. I agreed. All I wanted was my 70%. He scraped together over $10 million in loans and transfers to buy me out. By then more than 3 months had passed since the divorce. Julian was renting a shabby subsidized apartment, waiting for his company's profits to float him again. With my share I bought another villa. I thought I'd sink into grief once we split, but there was too much to do. I didn't have time to be sad. I took Mom and Dad on a trip, then came back to furnish the house, plant flowers, lay sod, every day packed. Riley, half a year zipped by. Near year's end Brielle gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. I wasn't digging for news, but Julian threw a colossal party, 2 straight nights of galas on the plaza outside their complex, complete with a lion dance crew and influencers. Half the city heard about it. It stirred nothing in me. I was busy planning my own company. After talking it over with Dad, I decided to revive his old trade. We would open a thermal wear plant plus a yoga athleisure line, year-round sales. This time we'd target the domestic market. Dad had decades of factory know-how. I hired him as production consultant. I poached 2 sharp young designers at top dollar and built a sales team, one group for e-commerce, one for brick-and-mortar. Offline reps hit supermarkets and boutiques. Online, we wholesaled to streamers and e-tailers, no retail, just bulk dropship. Because the road was familiar, Nova Warm ran like clockwork. The orders weren't the 100-grand deals Julian's heartwear chased, but clothes are daily necessities, run them right and the cash flows steady. Another winter rolled around. A swarm of influencers pushed our thermals and orders exploded. New purchase orders piled in faster than we could list them. Workers cycled in 3 shifts, sewing machines smoked. Just before the holiday, a friend dropped by to pick gift sets for her elders. We brewed gongfu tea in my office while we chatted. She mentioned Mr. Hart had died 2 days earlier. The place reeked, she said. I was stunned, though his stroke had left him frail, his body had been stable. How could he go so fast? Bed sores, all rotten. They say he screamed himself to death, she said. Julian parked him at home and forgot him, moved Mrs. Hart in to help Brielle with the twins. She cooked once a week, left 7 days of food in the fridge for him to reheat. At first he could still move, later he couldn't get out of bed. Neighbors heard him wailing, then silence. They called the cops. By the time officers showed, he was gone and the apartment stank. It was grim. I sat speechless. She went on, and that's not all. Before the old man was even buried, Mrs. Hart had lined up her next man. She'd been waiting for him to die. Her new guy's been around 2 years already. I remembered the years Mr. Hart lay ill. Mrs. Hart hadn't cared, never asked about his condition, just dressed to the nines and drifted out early, back late. Maybe he'd already found someone back then. I guess Julian really takes after his mother. I only half listened to the gossip. It never lodged in my heart. After all, whether my ex-husband's family lived or died had nothing to do with me. 2 more months slipped by. Julian came looking for me. The factory gateman didn't recognize him, so he claimed he was here to inspect goods, registered at the entrance, and strolled in. He tracked down my office. At the time I was deep in discussion with a designer about the new spring-summer yoga athleisure line. Spotting his furtive head poking around the doorway, I snapped, "What are you doing here?" Julian instantly layered on a fawning smile. I told the designer to revise the drafts and come back later. He walked her to the door and quietly shut it. I regarded him with ice in my eyes. The once high-spirited man now looked haggard, his clothes rumpled beyond recognition. "Stella, I'm here to ask a favor." I kept my silence. He gave an awkward chuckle and plowed on. "My company's hit a rough patch. A few big purchase orders expire next month and they're not renewing. They've switched to another software house. Could you talk to them for me? I'm willing to cut my price by another 10%. So that was his play. You can negotiate that yourself. What's it got to do with me? I shot back. Regret crawled across his face. Last year I offended 2 of their project heads. With the market so bad, they demanded I drop my service fee 10%, and I flat out refused. When the contracts ended this year, they walked. Then, one after another, the rest of the major orders all lapsed. I didn't think it'd snowball like this. If I'd known, I'd have swallowed that 10%. These clients were all brought in by you back in the day. Could you help me reach out? I'm on board with the discount now. When the deals close, I'll make sure your cut is more than generous. Utter fool. Over the past 2 years, plenty of software firms have voluntarily slashed their rates. His company isn't some irreplaceable global giant. What pride is he clinging to? I smiled faintly. His eyes flared with hope. I said pleasantly, "Mr. Hart, if you're here to order thermal wear, you're welcome. Anything else is off the table. Those clients are no concern of mine, and frankly I'm amazed you dared show your face." Recalling the humiliation he once served me, I reminded him, begging people for deals is gutter work, your exact words. Why would I rush to soil my hands? Julian was almost in tears. I had no patience for his melodrama. I summoned security and had him escorted out. After he left, I opened the order file my hired CEO had just sent and burst out laughing. Long before Novaworm stabilized, I'd quietly partnered with friends to register a software firm. My name never appeared on the shareholder roll. Its services overlapped almost perfectly with Julian's. Over the last 2 years, I'd poached one talented engineer after another from him. Those expiring contracts? I'd been harvesting them one by one. Now he wanted me to intercede, basically begging me to steal from myself. Julian's company filed for bankruptcy liquidation 2 years later. The front doors were sealed with red tape. Even the office desks and chairs were hauled away by the asset lender. By then I'd begun a new chapter of my life. He was a university physics professor, also on his second marriage. Word was he and his first wife parted amicably. She stayed at an overseas research institute, got her green card, and remarried a foreigner. Friends introduced us. He was both wooden and witty, contradictory, I know, but one conversation proves the two traits coexist in perfect harmony. We never chattered much. He disappeared into equations while I juggled factory shifts. When a holiday came, I'd shuffle my calendar so we could wander some quiet corner of the world and let him unwind. 2 years after we married, I was pregnant. While my husband accompanied me to St. Anne's Hospital for prenatal checks, we ran into Julian and Brielle. They trotted alongside an ambulance, weeping as they ran. Inside lay a blood-soaked little boy, maybe 5 or 6. The ambulance screamed straight into the ER bay. Once the theater doors slammed shut, the two collapsed on the floor, wailing. After my checkup, passing the nurse's station, I overheard staff mention that a 5-year-old had fallen from a building and couldn't be saved. The image of Julian and Brielle pushing that gurney flashed back into my mind. Could the boy have been theirs? Later I learned the full story. Brielle and Mrs. Hart were addicted to mahjong. To keep the tiles clacking uninterrupted, they locked 2 children inside the apartment. There was nothing to eat. In the afternoon, stomachs growling, the kids tried calling mommy, no answer. The boy remembered a TV scene where a kid slid down a tree outside a window to the ground. He decided to copy it. Julian's apartment was on the 4th floor, a big tree stood just outside. The little girl dragged over a stool. The boy hoisted himself onto the sill. His foot slipped, he plunged straight off the balcony. The girl leaned out shrieking, "Brother, brother," until neighbors noticed. Someone called 911 and pried open the door. They found the boy crumpled in the green strip below and phoned 120, then Julian and Brielle. I sat stunned, speechless. A living, breathing child, extinguished by their household's negligence. I recalled the fanfare that greeted those 2 births. The present ending left me heartsick. Later, Julian and Brielle divorced. Custody of their daughter went to Julian. After their son's death, Brielle drifted in and out of catatonia, forever hunting for her little boy. Julian threw his mother out for good, forbidding her ever to return. She ran to her old flame, but his grown children blocked the match. They met in secret at a motel. The man's daughter burst in and caught them red-handed. Mrs. Hart's clothes were flung from the balcony. Staff had to fish 2 forgotten guest garments from the lost and found so she could slink home. After the scandal, rumor said she left town. No one knows where she disappeared. Roughly 2 years later, I spotted Julian once on the street. My husband carried our daughter while I curled my arm through his, heading to the mall for baby supplies. Julian came toward us. His mouth opened as if to greet me. I kept chatting with my husband, cooing at our giggling little girl. I didn't spare him a glance. A muffled sob drifted from behind, but it was faint, swallowed by our daughter's bright laughter. I won't look back. My happiness lies ahead. Thanks for listening to today's story. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate it? If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with friends. We look forward to reading your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping tales. See you next time.